Welcome everyone to this video on how to answer a synthesis question for the WJEC English Language GCSE. These types of questions can turn up in either Unit 2 or Unit 3, so very useful for us to revise them, and also they're very often worth a considerable amount of marks, so I think it's imperative that we are able to answer synthesis questions to a very high standard in order to pick up those marks that will differentiate those A's and A stars. When I say the word synthesis, this is what most people think. They think, that sounds complicated, that sounds difficult, I don't want to do that. Because they assume it's something to do with chemicals. I've got an equation here that means absolutely nothing to me. I'm sure you all know far more chemistry than I do. Because to synthesize is something that is done in science. Synthesis means to bring things together. It means to create something new from constituent parts. Now, forget about how difficult synthesis might sound. I'm going to make this incredibly simple for you. I'll be able to define how I would look at synthesis in an English exam in about 4 or 5 words. So forget about synthesis being difficult. Let's look at this in how it can mean something simple to us in an English exam. What we are learning today is how to get full marks in the synthesis question, and it is not as difficult as you might assume. What I'm looking for is for you to understand how to approach the question, the steps you need to go through in order to get the information you need and how to use that information, be able to synthesize effectively and to be concise and to deal with multiple texts efficiently. Because a synthesis question is the first type of question that might ask you to look at multiple texts, not just one, perhaps 2 or 3 texts at the same time. The way I suggest you look at a synthesis question is like this. Your job is to make one text from many texts. Imagine there were 3 pieces of writing on the table in front of you. In order to find the information you need, you would have to read all 3 pieces of writing. But those pieces of writing might have loads of information you don't need in them. Inside each text, there will be exactly what you're looking for, but there could be loads of irrelevant information in there that is a waste of time for you to read. If I were to ask you, read those 3 texts and just pick out the information that is on one particular topic and just write about those in one text for me, then that is what synthesizing is in an English exam. It is looking at multiple texts, ignoring all of the stuff you don't need, and just bringing together or collating the information that you are looking for. So that way, I don't have to read those 3 texts, you've read the 3 texts, and you've given me one document to look at with all the information I need. This is how I visualize this type of question and the task that you need to complete. Imagine you've got 3 pieces of writing in front of you, text A, text B, and text C. All of these pieces of writing are about local coffee shops and local restaurants. They'll have lots of information in there, from what the experience is like going in, what the food is like, what the teas and coffees are like, how the staff respond to the customers. There'll be lots of information in text A, text B, and text C. But what if I don't care about all of the information? What if I just want to know what their coffee is like? Because I'm going to go to all of these places, but I don't need to know about the food. I don't need to know about the staff. All I really want to know is what's their coffee like. Now, I could read text A, text B, and text C, which would take me a little bit of time, but I actually don't need to read those texts. What I need is for someone to create a different text for me that is only about the coffee. So this new text would just be about text A, text B, and text C, but it would pull out just the information I need, and it would ignore all the other irrelevant information. If I were to task you for doing that, what you would need to do is, first of all, find the bits that are about coffee. Ignore everything else, just identify what each text says about the thing that I'm looking for. What you would then need to do is to filter out all of the irrelevant things. Get rid of everything else I don't need and just keep what you do need. So everything about coffee is going into our new text, everything else is going to get ignored. What you could then do for me is to write one short piece of paper, and on it is everything I need to know so that I can read your text and I don't need to read those other texts. That's how I would look at this particular question type. I'll give you one more example to make this as clear as possible. This is a question that I'm asking you. Synthesize what text A, text B, and text C says about Lucy's behaviour in school. I get given a report at the end of an academic year. I get a maths report, I get an English report, I get a science report. However, for this particular occasion, I don't care about how this student is doing academically. I don't care about what their uniform is like. I don't care about whether they bring their things to school, whether they're punctual. All I want to find out is how Lucy's behaviour is in school. So instead of reading the maths, the English and the science reports, you could make me a new report that is purely about behaviour. So you would look at the maths, the English and the science report, and you would only pick out the behaviour comments. Then we would filter out everything you don't need, and you could write me a new text, and this one would be a behaviour report instead of an academic report. What essentially you're doing is you're taking the bits you need from many texts and you're filtering it in to one text of purely useful information for what I've asked you. That's how a synthesis question would work. You have 3 texts with lots of information, most of it you don't need. You ignore what is relevant and you keep what is needed and you write it in a nice, clear, elegant way. It is as simple as that. As we practice this, you'll see that this is not the type of question to be intimidated by. Now, I know what people will be thinking at this point. I've just taught you how to complete a summary question, and synthesis actually sounds very similar to a summary question. And there are clear similarities. In a summary question, you definitely are filtering out unneeded information. Completely agree. You are making the text shorter for the reader. Absolutely, that's exactly what you're doing. And synthesis questions also filter out unneeded information, and they also make 3 texts shorter for the reader. However, there are some clear differences this time. The first difference between a summary question and a synthesis question is in a summary question, you must never quote. You must only use your own words. You have to translate it into your own words in order to be given marks. You must focus on one text for a summary, and you write in bullet points, whereas a synthesis question, you should quote from the text. You should quote often. You will focus on more than one text, and you shouldn't write in bullet points. We will form it into full sentences so that the text that you produce is a replacement for the 3 other texts, but I do need to read it in full sentences. Now, in order to practice this, I've taken a question from the Unit 2 paper that was released on the 4th of June 2019. The focus of this exam paper was on robots, so the information that we need to synthesize is all about robots. The question that turned up in this exam was synthesize the information in text B, text C and text D to show what robots can be used for. And it was worth 10 marks, which is enormous. There are only 40 marks available for the reading section of the exam. So this mark is worth 25% of the reading marks available in the exam. Also, there are only 80 marks in the entire exam paper. So synthesis question was a large proponent of the exam. Now, as always, when it comes to an exam question, you must read the question very, very carefully. You'll notice they've used the word synthesis, makes it very clear what type of answer they're expecting. They do specify that we must take the information from text B, text C and text D. Unfortunately, whilst I marked some of these papers, lots of students looked at the wrong texts. Some students actually tried to synthesize the information in text A as well, which was obviously a big problem. We do need to make sure we're paying very close attention to what they're asking. And finally, the whole point of this new text that you're going to create is you're going to be able to show what robots can be used for. That doesn't mean you synthesize all of the information you find about robots because some of the information won't be relevant. It must be based on what they ask you for, which is what robots can be used for. So I don't care what a particular robot is called. I don't really care when robots were first invented. I only want to know what robots can be used for. 10 marks is enormous, and hopefully after watching this video you'll see how you can achieve those 10 marks in a fairly quick and efficient way. The exam paper gave this amount of paper in the exam. 2 pages they expected you to write, and that's, I think, achievable. 10 marks normally means about 15 minutes in total, so I would suggest about 5 minutes of reading the texts and highlighting, and then 10 minutes of actually writing. So 2 sides of A4 is what they're expecting from us in the exam. This was the first text, and I'll model exactly what we need to do. What we need to do is to start off by reading the text. As we read, we've hopefully got a highlighter in our hands, and we only highlight what is necessary for this exam. This question has asked us what robots are used for. I am going to ignore everything apart from what robots are used for. So I'll model this with you. Text B is taken from an article from a website about technology. What is a robot? Robots may be all around us, but do you know how to recognize one? So far I'm ignoring what I've read. I mean, I'm computing it, I'm understanding what's being said, but that does not have a place in my example. That doesn't have a place in my answer, because it is not about what robots can be used for. There is some debate about exactly what a robot is and what it is not. Many people think of robots as human-looking devices that carry out commands. Whilst this may be true, this is not a common type of robot. Some students may be highlighting a human-looking device that carries out commands because that's what robots do. But this text actually says that that's what people think robots do. But that's not the common type of robot. So while some people might think, well, that's definitely something I need to highlight, I'm going to avoid doing that because I realise that the author is telling me that this is what people assume of robots, not what they actually do. Robots are much more common than people think, and we encounter them every day. Again, that does tell us something about robots, but it does not tell us what we can use them for. If you've taken your car through an automatic car wash, withdrawn cash from an ATM, or used a vending machine to grab a drink, then you may have interacted with a robot. It really all depends on how you define a robot. That is where I think we get our first information. So everything else has been irrelevant to this point, but those details have a place in my synthesis answer. What can robots be used for? I would say that robots can be used in automatic car washes. They can be used to withdraw money from an ATM, and they can be used to take drinks or food products from vending machines. Those are the details that I've been able to spot so far that I will need to synthesize. Everything else is going to be ignored. The Oxford English Dictionary defines a robot as a machine capable of carrying out a complex series of actions automatically, especially one programmable by a computer. That dictionary definition tells us what robots can be used for, so that has a place in my answer. A robot should also be able to respond to its environment, to alter its program to complete a task, and know when a task is complete. So, the following definition of a robot is therefore more appropriate. A machine capable of responding to its environment to automatically carry out complex or repetitive tasks with little, if any, direction from a human being. Modern robot design, known as robotics, is a branch of science and engineering that designs and builds robots. Robotic design involves everything from designing robotic arms used in factories to androids which are designed to look and act like humans. There are 2 more ways that robots can be used there. The first one being they can be used in robotic arms used in factories, and we can have androids which are designed to look and act like humans. So far, I've only highlighted the parts of the text that tell me what robots can be used for. Now, unfortunately, in the exam, lots of people saw the picture of the rather charming looking robot on the right hand side, and they forgot to read the little caption that goes with it. There is some information in the caption that would be useful. Robots, such as the Mars Curiosity rover, are used to investigate places that are dangerous for humans. That is another application of a robot. So far what we've done is we've read a text, we've picked out the bits that we need, highlighted them, and ignored everything else. What essentially we've done is we've changed this text into this. We've just picked out what we need, everything else does not have a place in our answer. I think what we've done is not the most difficult thing that you've ever been asked to do. I don't think it's been particularly demanding. All it requires you to do is to read very, very carefully and to identify what is needed and what can be ignored. What we've done is we've found out exactly the information that we've been asked for. This is not how our exam answer will look. This is simply the stage we're at the moment. I'll show you exactly how to form the answer in a little bit. But so far, we've read a text and we know that all we've actually been asked for is this. They can be used for automatic car washes, for ATMs, vending machines, carrying out complex series of actions, arms used in factories, look and act like humans, and for investigating places that are dangerous for humans. We've taken all of the information we need and we're going to use that to craft our new text in a little bit. But it's not just based on this text, we need to make sure we look at the other two texts too. So let's do that now. The next text is text C. We will go through exactly the same process. We will highlight what we need, we will ignore everything else. Text C is taken from an article on business news on the BBC website. Robots to affect up to 30% of UK jobs. Robotics and artificial intelligence could affect almost a third of UK jobs by the 2030s, according to a report by John Hawksworth. However, it also predicted that the nature of some jobs would change rather than disappear. It added that the use of robots could create more wealth and additional jobs elsewhere in the economy. I asked the same question. What can robots be used for? They can be used to create more wealth and additional jobs. Nice and simple. We're only selecting what we need. Jobs in manufacturing and retail were among those most at risk from new technology. 30% of existing jobs in the UK were potentially at risk, compared with 38% in the US, 35% in Germany, and 21% in Japan. Now, whilst that information is very interesting, it's not useful to me. I'm only looking at what these robots can do. That little paragraph there says nothing. John Hawksworth told the BBC that more manual routine jobs, which can effectively be programmed, were the most at risk. Jobs that required more of a human touch, like health and education, would be safer. Here, it tells us that robots can be used to replace more manual, routine jobs. Now, whilst that's not stated explicitly, it can be inferred that that's what robots can do. They can replace more manual, routine jobs. The use of robots in the workplace is increasing, with some workers already facing up to the potential challenges. For example, in the future, truck drivers might job share with a self-driving lorry. Ultimately, people are going to have to be more adaptable. Robots can be used for self-driving lorries. However, the report also concluded that better efficiency through the use of robots would boost the economy. In many ways, automation is a good thing. It's going to boost productivity and increase incomes. This will increase demand for human jobs in other areas. The UK is currently experiencing low levels of unemployment. Giving more repetitive tasks to robots could free up people to do more valuable work, the report found. That's another thing that robots can do. They can be used to free up people so that they can work on something more valuable. Again, we've taken what we need, we ignore everything else. The information we've been asked for in this text is they create more wealth, they can replace manual routine jobs, self-driving lorries, free up people to do more valuable jobs. We're condensing the information down first, ready to be used later. This leads us on to the final text, which is text D. Again, we need to focus purely on what robots can do. Text D is taken from a national newspaper. UK scientists create world's smallest surgical robot. A team of 100 scientists and engineers from Cambridge have used low-cost technology, originally developed for mobile phones, to create the world's smallest surgical robot. A robotic arm specifically designed to carry out keyhole surgery. That is something that a robot can do. The robot, called Vertius, imitates the human arm and can be used to carry out medical procedures in which small incisions are made to avoid the need for traditional open surgery. This reduces complications and pain after surgery and speeds up recovery times for patients. That's another thing a robot can do. It can imitate a human arm. Although surgical robots already exist, the new creation is easier to use, takes up about a third of the space of current machines, and will be no more expensive than non-robotic keyhole surgery. Nothing there that we need to highlight. Having robots in the operating theatre is not a new idea, said the company's chief executive. The problem at the moment is that they are hugely expensive. Not only do they cost £2 million each to buy, but every operation costs an extra £3,000 when using the robot. And they are very large. Many hospitals have to set up the operating theatre around the robot. They are also poorly utilised. They are only really used for pelvic surgery and can't be easily adapted to other types of surgery. Now, I don't need to know the information about how much it costs and how it needs to be set up around a robot. That's irrelevant to my text, so I ignore what's there. The final paragraph says, for robots to revolutionise surgery, they need to be versatile, easy to use and small, so that surgical staff can move them around the operating room or between operating theatres. Our robot does all of this and is the first robotic arm to be designed specifically for keyhole surgery, he said. One of the key benefits of the robot is that it works with the same care and precision as a human arm. The other great benefits is that the robot doesn't tire like a surgeon can. We take what we need, we ignore the rest, and it leads us to this. This text has given us this information. They can carry out keyhole surgery and other everyday surgeries. They can imitate the human arm. They can operate with the same precision and care as a human arm, and they don't tire. That's what robots can do. What we've done so far is taken 3 long texts and made them very, very short. That's what we've done so far. We haven't brought them together properly yet, but essentially, instead of reading the texts, I could simply look at what's on screen. However, if I just read them the way they are on screen now, that text wouldn't make sense to me. If I just handed that document to someone, they wouldn't really understand what this text is all about. So what we need to do is take the information that we've collected and we need to collate it together. We need to put it into one document in a nice, clear, sensible fashion so that whoever reads it almost never knows that they were another 3 texts originally. I can just read the text that you've created and I find out everything I need to know. The structure I would create for your answer is this. I would start talking about text B, telling me everything about what robots can do, then move on to text C, and then move on to text D. Notice how I'm not weaving them all together. I'm essentially stitching these 3 texts together. I'm not weaving them in and out. I'm not talking about B and then moving on to D and then bringing it back to C and adding some points about B. I'm moving through these methodically, one text at a time. There is absolutely no need to compare when answering a synthesis question. You don't need to tell me how text B and text D have similarities and differences. That is not the point of this question. There's no need to cross-reference at all. When it comes to this type of answer, I want you to blend the information taken from those 3 documents and just create one new document for me. A reader will not need to read the original documents. They only need to read your document to find out all of the information that they need. That's the purpose of this question. Once we've reduced the text down to just those important details, it's then time for us to begin writing our answer. And this is going to be how the examiner is going to read it. Now on your screen is only one part of the answer. Please don't think this is the entire answer. This is just the answer based on text B so far. Notice how the text begins with text B. It is important that you tell the examiner which part of the text you are currently synthesizing. Text B reveals that robots can be used for a number of tasks. Robots can be used to wash cars in an automatic car wash, or to take money out using an ATM. The text also says that robots are used for dispensing drinks in a vending machine. Robots are used to carry out a complex series of actions automatically. The text also explains that robots can be used in robotic arms in factories, as well as androids being used to look and act like humans. Robots can also be utilized for investigating places that are dangerous for humans. Notice how this answer clearly states which text it's focusing on. It uses quotations all the way through the text, essentially stitching the original text together, but if you just read that paragraph, it does make sense. It's not just a series of random quotations chucked in for no reason. This is a student who is stitching all of the bits they need together and writing it in a fairly fluent and fairly concise way. It's not the end of the answer. We'll move on to text C and text D momentarily, but at the moment, it's just stating what needs to be stated. Text C, this is the example answer here. Text C focuses on the impact of robots on employment and reveals that robots can be used to help the economy as they create more wealth. They can be used to replace manual routine jobs, which will be helpful to free up people to do more valuable jobs. Robots can also be used in self-driving lorries. And the final text can be reduced to this. Text D shows that robots have applications in the medical sector and are capable of carrying out keyhole surgery and other everyday surgeries. Robots are particularly useful as they imitate the human arm. These robots can be beneficial because they have the same care and precision as a human arm, whilst also having the advantage because it doesn't tire like a surgeon can. When we stitch all of that together, this is how our text might be seen. We can quite clearly see that we've explained exactly how robots can be used in text B, then text C, then text D. All of the information that has been asked for is quite clearly written in a nice, simple, easy to read fashion. The person who reads this text does not need to go back to the original text to find out what they said, because everything that they're looking for has been given nice and clearly to them in a nice, simple fashion. If we have a look at these sections, you'll see quite clearly that there's no interweaving. I haven't had to move back and forth from the texts. I haven't had to cross-reference them. I've simply stated what each text reveals about the thing that I was asked for. This is what we're looking for in an exam situation. Now that we've gone through the entire process of reading the text, identifying the information required, and then writing it into a synthesis answer, it's important that we take a look to see what the examiners are expecting of us. I don't think it would be very sensible for us to ignore the mark scheme, because after all, the mark scheme is what's going to be used to award us our marks, and we can check to see how we've performed. On the right-hand side of your screen, it says details candidates may explore or comment on could be. And if you take a look at those bullet points, they're almost identical to the types of things that we've talked about today. You might have missed one or two things, or it might be phrased in a slightly different way. But everything that needs to be commented on, I think we've commented on in our synthesis answer. On the left-hand side is how they award the marks, and this is very important to realise, because examiners won't mark you based on the amount of points that you've made. We do need to have very clear coverage of most of those details, but it's not simply that you write one sentence that happens to mention ATMs and you get one tick and that means 1 mark. Your answer is going to be based on the strength. Very important to remember. So for A11, it gives us the question once more, and then it tells us what they're looking for. This question tests the ability to synthesize information effectively from more than one text, interpret meaning and ideas in a text, and to use inference and deduction skills to retrieve and analyze details. I believe that we've shown all of those skills today. I think we have been able to take information from more than one text. I do think that using our reading skills, we've interpreted meaning and we've decided to ignore some parts because the meaning, once we've used our inference skills, actually reveals something different, and we've been able to retrieve those details and to analyze those details in places. So you'd get 0 marks for responses where there is nothing worthy of credit. Those are for the students who haven't answered the question or simply started writing about something completely different to what the question asked for. Give 1 to 2 marks for those who identify and begin to comment on some examples. These candidates may restrict themselves to commenting on one text. I think it's very important to realise that if you only talk about one text when you've been asked to talk about 3, you're going to be limited in the marks. So we do need to make sure we've got coverage from all of those texts. Give 3 to 4 marks to those who identify and give straightforward comments on some examples across at least 2 of the texts. You'll notice that if you only comment on 2 texts, you're going to be restricted to 4 marks. We have commented on all 3 of those texts and we've been accurate in what we've covered, so I think we are guaranteed more than 4 marks. Give 5 to 6 marks to those who explain a number of different examples from across the text. These answers may begin to collate details effectively. I think we do more than we might begin to collate. I think we've been successful in collating those information, so we can give ourselves more than 6 marks. Give 7 to 8 marks to those who make accurate comments about a range of different examples, using information from all 3 of the texts. These answers will collate details effectively. I think we have covered a range of different examples. If you look at the right-hand side, I think we've covered nearly all of them. More importantly, I think we've been actually very effective in collating those details. We've brought them all together in a fairly intelligent way. Give 9 to 10 marks, and this is the A and A star territory. Give 9 to 10 marks to those who make accurate and perceptive comments about a wide range of different examples from all 3 of the texts. Well-considered, confident collation skills will be evident. I think what we've completed has been quite confident. I feel the text that we've created is an excellent substitute for the 3 texts that were originally given to us. So I think we can give ourselves a mark towards the top end of the mark scheme. You'll probably believe that we haven't done anything exceptional, and I agree. When we look at different questions, like a how does the writer question, it requires a lot of inference, it requires a lot of analysis. This type of question doesn't require that level of analysis. Sometimes it is required, but this type of question simply tests your ability to bring information together and to present it eloquently. I'm hoping what we've achieved today then is to be able to understand that synthesis questions are not quite as intimidating as we might think. I'm hoping that we understand how to approach a synthesis question, how to go through the process in order to achieve highly, and how to ensure our answer is as effective as it possibly can be. I'm hoping you've enjoyed the video. I'm hoping it all makes sense to you. I will speak to you all next time. Have an utterly delightful day. Thank you for watching.